All right, good evening, and thank you guys for joining me in BK 141 tonight. My name is Chef Sinead, and I will be your instructor, and I'm really excited. We're going to go over so much cool stuff during this class. So, how's everybody? Everybody doing good? Nice. All right, so we're gonna go over, some housekeeping, go over my contact info, rubric, all that fun stuff. A couple different policies. I know that you guys have been in the program for quite some time, so just a couple things switching up that I want to go over with you. But let's go ahead and take a look at the class page. We'll start out there. All right, so of course, towards the top of the page, you'll find your class announcement section. I want you guys to keep an eye out there because I'm going to be posting like really helpful tips and important announcements in there. So keep an eye out, and you should be getting an email whenever I put anything in there. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Your syllabus, of course, you'll be able to find a breakdown of the entire class in there, and then of course your link for your textbook. And then over to the side, contact hours here, office hours as well. So during office hours, like I'm super, super available to you guys. Text is always going to be the quickest way to get me. If you call and I might be with another student, just make sure you're leaving a voicemail. Just let me know your name, your class that you're in, your name, and then just a brief, question. And then I'll definitely give you a call back, and that way I'll know exactly what, to call you back with, just in case I miss your call. Same thing with a text message. If you guys are texting me, just name and class. That way I know who you are and what class you're in. That way I can help you the best that I can. And then of course, email here. You can always just shoot me a message over Moodle. So a couple things that I wanted to go over with you guys. So we've got a few things, just a couple things changing. With your quizzes, your knowledge checks, your conversion checks, those are going to be open through the whole class. So you'll be able to submit those even after the week. But we still really want you guys to get it in that week. That way you're posting your attendance. So what would happen basically is a 0 would get put in if you did not submit it that week. But then you're still able to go back in there and do that knowledge check, do that conversion check. But again, just really try to get it done during that week so that you're posting your attendance and you don't have to worry about any of that. Any questions there? Does anybody need any more clarification on that one? All right, so the other one I wanted to talk about was makeups. So previously in a 6-week course, you guys have been getting 2 makeups. And then in your 12-week course, you're getting 3. So now we're not having the makeup section, which I think is really going to be beneficial to help you guys to stay on track from week to week, because each week you know that you're going to have to get it in that week. There's not going to be that makeup section sitting there waiting at the end of class. But that's not to say that you can't reach out to me with an emergency and just, communicate. Talk to me and let me know what's going on, and we can, talk about how we want to handle that situation from a case-to-case situation. So the makeups are gone. We want to see getting that assignment in from week to week, but then just keep the communication open. That way I always know what's going on. Any questions there? No? All right, awesome. So we've gotten through all of that stuff, and now we can talk about the fun stuff. We can talk about all of our confiserie. I love to say confiserie. So what is confiserie? So is anybody sitting there like, what is that, chef? What's happening? What does that mean? Does anybody want to have a go and talk about what it means? What do you think that means to you? Like what would fall under that category? What do you think?
Like candy, hard candy,
Yes.
I think it would be macarons, something
Great.
like really sweet, like had nothing to do like with chocolate too, but like different kind of other sweets.
Yeah, so there's going to be 3 main categories in this world. You're going to have your sugar, you're going to have chocolate, and then you're going to have your flour. So basically, all of your chocolate production, that's going to be one section of your confectionery world. Sugar, which we're talking about this week. And then last, that's where like your macarons would fall, you know, all your little like petit fours and stuff, all of that would fall under like the flour category of your confectionery, which I think it was, do we have, I think it was Francine asked me about petit fours. So petit fours have a couple different categories as well. You're gonna have your glacé, you're gonna have your sec, and then you're gonna have your fraise, and then the last one that you would have for that is going to be your dégrisé. So with the macarons, that's gonna fall under the sec category. So like any cookies, your pommiers, basically because sec means dry, so any of those little dry, it's always gonna be like 1 to 2 bites. Any of those, that's going to fall under your sec category for your petit fours. And then your glacé would be like probably what you would typically think of when you hear petit four, like the little cakes that are covered in the glaze, that would be glacé. So basically anything with like that confectioner's fondant, that poured fondant, that's what's going to fall under that category. So with this week, what we're going to be going over is sugar. So let's go ahead and chat about like sugar cookery. So that's what we're focusing on. That's what's going to be the assignment this week. You're going to be able to take that sugar through all like the different stages. You're going to be cooking it. You're going to be boiling down that sugar, and you're going to show me each of those stages. And then we're going to talk about like, well, what can you make at those different stages? So I did want to show you a couple pictures. Hold on one second. I had a couple petit four pictures. They're really pretty. I wanted you guys to take a look there. So I thought that this one up here was a great example of kind of an array of different petit fours that you could have. This one right here. So you've got your eclairs, you've got your little tartlets, you've got macarons, you've got like the little cakes. And so it's a great display of all the different type of petit fours that you could have. So I just wanted to share that picture with you. I thought that one was really, really pretty. But let's go ahead and pull up this week's assignment. So a couple things before we get into that though. Some things that you might want to use this week would be a candy thermometer. It's going to be super helpful for you. You can use a candy thermometer, you know, like the kind, like the stick, and it has like the whole bar on there. You can grab those at Target, Walmart, Amazon, any of them have it. That's going to be super helpful. What you want is for your thermometer to be able to go all the way up to like 400 degrees would be a good start. That way you can take your sugar through the whole range of temperatures that we need to take it through. A different type of thermometer could be a digital probe. I like the digital ones because it's quick and easy. Like you can stick your thermometer in there, boom, your temperature pops right up on the digital screen. So I find that one to be really, really helpful. There's also another type of thermometer. It's called a thermometer infrared. That way you can, it's checking the heat on the surface. The only thing with that though is it's not checking the heat like in what you're making. So kind of when we start getting into chocolate, I'll go over that again because I find that to be pretty helpful in tempering chocolate. But I want to bring up this week's class assignment. That way, you know, we know what to do. We're going to watch the video of it. That way, you know exactly what we're looking for this week. So what we're going to be doing is you're going to be taking your sugar through these different stages. So starting from softball stage and then ending at hard crack. So once we watch the video, it'll definitely make more sense. But what you're basically going to be doing is just, you're going to take a piece of parchment, and as you're cooking your sugar, as you're taking it through those stages, you're going to be putting some on that parchment and taking that picture. And that way, I'm able to see all of the steps that all of the stages that you've taken that sugar through. And then you can even play with it a little bit because which you'll see in the video. It's really cool. You'll like take some and put it in the cold water, and then you can kind of like roll it in your hand and make like the ball out of it when you're at that softball stage, firm ball stage. So, talking about the different stages of sugar, let's bring up softball stage. Can anybody tell me maybe some things that you're already using cooked sugar for, that boiled sugar? Does anybody know? Has anybody had any experience there yet, as of yet? Hard candy? Yeah, so what stage do you think you're going to be using for hard candy? Hard crack, exactly. And then meringue, Monique said meringue, Carmen said meringue. Do you guys know what stage you're using for your meringue? With meringue, you're going to be using a firm or soft. Yeah, if you're doing like a buttercream, definitely. If you're doing like a Italian meringue buttercream, you're definitely going to want to use that softball stage. If you're doing like meringue cookies, like you're going to bake them off, then you would want to do more of like a firm ball stage. So there's so many different things. With softball stage, you can do buttercream, you can do soft caramels, fudge. So fudge doesn't fall in the chocolate category, even though I think like when we think about fudge, we probably think, oh, that's chocolate. It's actually sugar. You're cooking the sugar, and you can flavor all kind of different ways. Chocolate is probably just the most common. And then there's also, you know, poured fondant or confectioner's fondant. That's like what we're glazing those little petit fours with, or, you know, like the Cadbury's cream eggs, that filling in there, that's fondant. That's poured fondant versus rolled fondant. With your firm ball, you're going to have meringue, marshmallow, nougat, toffee. That's what's all going to be under the category of your firm ball stage. Soft crack, we get into some butterscotch. And then with hard crack, of course, we get into hard candy. So let's go ahead and take a look at the video. That way you guys know, well, what exactly are you looking for this week? Just let me know if you can hear it all the way or if you need me to turn it up.
Sugar is one of the most essential ingredients to understand for pastry applications. This assignment, each of the sugar stages will be produced and identified. To begin, start by placing sheets of white paper on the counter, each labeled with the stage name and temperature zone. After each stage, you will remove a spoonful of the sugar, place it on the page, and take a photo. Next, place the water, sugar, and corn syrup in a pot and bring the heat up to high. As tempting as it is, be sure to not stir the pot. I like to put the water in first. That way the sugar, you know, is going to be fully hydrated, which will minimize the risk of crystallization. Make sure the heat is controlled under the pot, especially with the gas burner. You want to make sure it is centered and focused under the bottom of the pot. Make sure you have a cup of water and a pastry brush so that you can wash down the sides of the pot. Just in case some sugar sprays up on there, it dries up, it will form crystals, and it can fall back in there and start crystallization. Even though we put corn syrup, or if you don't have that, an acid like lemon juice or cream of tartar or vinegar in it, there may still be the possibility of crystallization. It's best for this procedure to have a small, narrow pot so that the sugar has a proper depth for your candy thermometer to be deep enough into the sugar to give you an accurate reading. As the pot is beginning to heat up, add in the candy thermometer and begin to monitor the temperature of the first stage, which is softball stage, or 235 to 240 degrees. Wash down the sides of the pot as needed with a clean pastry brush and clean tap water. Just rubbing it against the top edge of the pot, letting the water and steam run down the side and wash the crystals back into the pot. When the sugar reaches softball stage, remove a spoonful of the sugar and place it on its corresponding paper. In the pot, the sugar solution will have large, glassy, and slow-moving bubbles, and it will form a soft, sticky ball that can be flattened when removed from the water. This stage is used for buttercream, caramels, fudge, and fondant. on the counter.
These stages move pretty quickly, so you want to make sure that you do have everything ready to go before you get started.
Take a photo. Next, place the water, sugar, and corn syrup in a pot. Make sure you have a cup of water and a pastry brush. Wash down the sides of the pot. You can dip it in some ice water to help cool it down. After the softball stage, the stages will transition very quickly. Have the candy thermometer handy and be prepared to move quickly to capture each of them. At the same time, be sure to adjust the burner so that it doesn't heat up too quickly. Next up is the firm ball stage, or 245 to 250 degrees. It will appear firm but pliable. The bubbles will also continue to slow down. Firm ball is used for meringue, marshmallows, nougats, and toffee. You get some of the sugar cold in a little bowl of ice water off to the side. You can see how it squishes into a little firm ball. After firm ball stage is the hard ball stage, which is 250 to 265 degrees. This sugar stage should be thicker, and the bubbles will continue to slow down and become larger. It will form a hard, sticky ball that holds its shape. Next up is the soft crack stage, which will read 270 to 290 degrees. Use extra care when handling this stage as it can burn you. This sugar will form strands that are firm but still pliable. Soft crack sugar is utilized for butterscotch and taffy. Finally, the hard crack stage will form at 300 to 310 degrees. This sugar will form threads that are brittle, easily broken, and this is used almost exclusively for hard candy. Identifying sugar stages is the backbone of working with the ingredient. While this is a demo to initially understand the look and feel of these stages, working with sugar is absolutely essential to learn to master in order to work in the pastry field.
All right, so what questions do we have after watching the video and what stages we're looking for?
Hi, Chef Sinead.
Yes.
So if it's to make candy with all that extra sugar that we're preparing, what would be the time to add in flavoring?
So you're going to want to add in your flavor and your color like right before you're pulling it off the heat. Basically, you want it to get to the temperature you're looking for, and then you can go ahead and put in your flavor. Use like an alcohol-based flavor, and then you want to add in your color as well. Basically, what you're trying to do is make sure that like some of that moisture does get cooked off from your coloring, from your color and your flavor, but again, you don't want to interfere with your sugar cooking. Does that make sense? So like right at the end of it, you'll just put it in and then it'll hit that the hard crack that you're looking for, because if you're doing hard candies, you're going to want to Is that what you're talking about for the hard candies?
Yes, I mean, I was just thinking about all that extra product.
Oh yeah, definitely. So
You know.
I wanna show you guys some cool things that you can do, because we're only asking that you take it to the hard crack, but you can continue cooking it, and sugar caramelizes at 320 degrees. So you can let it go and start to get that color, start to caramelize, and then at that point you can pull it off of the heat. You'll have like a bowl ready with ice and water, and you're gonna put the bottom of your pot right in there to stop that cooking. And then you can use it to make different caramel garnishes. You can do spirals, you could do sugar cages, comets, or picks. Some people call them different things, like when you take like a nut or something like that and dip it in your caramel and then let it hang, and it creates like a stick.
Oh, right.
So you can take this sugar, once you've gotten all your stages, keep cooking it. You can also throw in some cream and some butter. I like to hit it with the butter first and then come in with some cream and make a sauce out of it. Stick it in a jar, stick that in the fridge, and you've got caramel sauce in there. And then you don't ever have to waste, you know, that cooked sugar. So those are some options there for you as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Wendy, what were you asked? Are we supposed to do like that for this week's assignment? So yes, what you're going to be doing, she did it right on a board, but you guys can use like a parchment and a sheet tray or something like that. That's fine. You could also use a silicone mat. That would work as well. So basically what you want to do, I know she dropped it on the pan and then she did it with her fingers. You don't have to. You can just pour them on the surface and then take that picture once you have each one of those stages poured out, because I can see like, well, how far is it spreading? You know, is it staying really still? Is it spreading out a lot? And that's how I'm going to gauge, you know, did you hit that proper temperature? So if you feel like you can't, you know, pour it out and like get it, like squish it between your fingers in the ice water before it hits that next stage, because it does move quickly. And in the beginning, you know, you're kind of getting comfortable with the whole thing, and it might be a little difficult to go through all of that in between each stage. So I'm perfectly fine if you just put them on the pan and then like take that picture, or put them on your paper, sorry, and take that picture and submit that to me. Does that answer your question, Wendy? Yeah, okay, awesome. And then are we using a baking sheet to put the sugar, or on the smooth cutting board? You can use a cutting board. You can use a parchment paper on a sheet tray. You can use a silicone mat. Any of those things is perfectly fine to use. You just want to make sure that it's something that's not going to melt. Like, you don't want to put it on plastic wrap, because your wrap is going to completely like disappear and melt on you. So just anything that can handle that heat. You want to be really, really safe when working with sugar, because it's very dangerous. Like, I still have scars from when I first started working with sugar. I remember the first time I made a sugar cage, and I was like, oh, I got this. I was like, I don't know, 15 years old. And I'm holding my ladle, and I'm going to drizzle the sugar on top, and I just drizzled it all over my hand. I was like, oh my gosh. But you'll have, you know, we want you to be safe. We don't want anything like that to happen. You know, we don't want to put this in the hands of 15-year-olds who thought that was a good idea. But yeah, just definitely make sure it's going on something that's not going to melt. Do we have to add corn syrup, and how much grams? Great question. So let me go ahead and pull up this week's formula, if you will. There's not a lot going on with it, of course. Hold on one second. I actually believe it's just a pound of sugar, to be quite honest, because I don't think it's there. All right, so at the top of the class page, if you're ever looking for like, well, how much of everything do I need? There is a weekly inventory sheet. So let me show you that to you guys real quick. That way you know how much to use. So we're just looking for 500 grams of sugar and 125 grams of water. Now, if you're going to add any corn syrup in there, so the thing with adding corn syrup, you don't want to have too much. It's what we call, I just drew a blank there. Well, we'll get back to that. Sorry. You don't want to have too much invert sugar in there because what's going to happen is the sugar might not set up as much for you. So your corn syrup, your glucose, your acid, you don't want too much of that. So what I would say probably for 500 grams, I would probably put like a tablespoon or so of corn syrup in there and you would be fine with that. Is it made with corn and a syrup? So like corn syrup, it's taking the sugar from corn and it processes it, and then you end up with that syrup, the syrup at the end of it. So yeah, it's not like taking the actual vegetable or anything like that. It's just, they sell at Caro. Caro is a good brand to use for that. And you can grab that in any grocery, you know, Walmart, Target, any of your local groceries will have that for you. But what that does is help to stop crystallization. So crystallization is your enemy when making non-crystalline sugars. So there are crystalline confections. Those are going to be like your fudge. That's where you want to have control of the crystallization process. But then things like hard candy, caramel, you want that sugar to be really clear. So it's very important not to get crystallization. So don't move your pot. Don't stir it. Don't sit there like stirring. Just leave it be, let it cook down. You can put, you know, some of that interfering agent. That's the word I was looking for. You can use your interfering agents to stop that crystallization from happening. That way, because what's going to happen if it starts to crystallize, your whole sugar is going to go solid. You're going to see you'll see actual crystals. It looks almost like snowflakes. And it's a chain reaction. And then all of a sudden your whole pot of sugar is just going to go hard. So that's what you don't want to happen. So that's why she was like brushing down the sides, because the water going down there is really going to help to kind of stop that from happening. No, if you can make your sugar without washing your sides, go for it, Cindy. You don't have to. It's definitely, it's just a, you know, a help. It's a crutch to make sure that you don't have that crystallization. Another thing you'll find that people will do is put a lid on your pot, or you can wrap the top of the pot with like plastic wrap. And what that does is the condensation builds up under there and then it drips down your sides. Again, just all things, all measures, all steps to make sure that you're not getting any crystallization. So if you don't do it and you haven't had any crystallization, then you are good to go. It is not required. You guys have awesome questions. Will it stick to my pot if it crystallizes? No, it's not going to ruin your pot. All you have to do, put some more water in there, stick it on a simmer. The sugar will melt back down, and then you can let it cool and pour that out and start again. So no, the only time your pot is going to be like not destroyed, I've seen some people have to scrub out black sugar, but if you left it and say walked away, don't walk away from your sugar. But if you walked away from your sugar and it completely burnt, then that's when you're going to probably lose the pot. But for the stages that you guys are taking the sugar through, that definitely shouldn't be any issue. All right, what other questions? Got good questions. Water's your friend during cleanup. It is. It really, really is. And then like combining that temperature, that heat with the water, you'll be good to go. Making lollipops so you don't waste the sugar. Yeah, so you can get those molds. You can get the lollipop molds. What you're going to do is you're going to pour your hard crack stage you're going to deposit that into each one of your cavities. And then you're going to take your lollipop stick and set it right in there and then just leave it. Don't touch it, just let it harden. And then once it's completely gone solid, once it's completely set, then you're going to go underneath and just kind of help them like pop them out. And then you've got your lollipops, and you can wrap them in like pretty cellophane or whatever kind of papers you like. Wrap that up, make sure it's really well wrapped, just so that it doesn't like start attracting moisture and get wet or anything like that. If you stick it in the fridge, you don't want to put sugar in the fridge because it will attract moisture. It's hygroscopic, and then it's just going to turn into like a liquidy mess. Can I put coloring into the water before starting? So you're going to want to put your color in at the end. So you can put your colors, you can put your flavors. pretty much towards the end of your cooking stage. Some people will put it in like right as soon as they take it off of the heat. Then you can put in your flavor, you can put in your liquid, because there's still enough heat to kind of evaporate some of the moisture that's in those. So that's fine to put it in right at the end. All right. I had some, if anybody, or were there any more questions on this week's assignment? No? So we also have, well, I'll get to that in a minute. I wanted to show you guys some sculptures, because there's this thing called isomalt. Has anybody heard of, oh yeah, Wendy, go ahead. What's your question?
Do we need to do a production note for that, or just the ingredient and then like the pictures?
You'll still do your production notes. You know, kind of just do your best to talk to me and walk me through your process. You know, of course, your steps, there's not going to be a lot of steps listed here, because it is just kind of cooking it through the stages. So I'm fine. I'm already aware of that. But, you know, talk to me, you know, give me information. If you're not tasting it, which, you know, it's sugar, you know, if you want to eat it, like if you're cooking it to that hard crack, or if you take it all the way to caramel, then talk to me about the flavors that you enjoyed, you know, all of that. But if it's something that you're not going to be consuming, then just make a note of it. Whenever there's any part of your narrative that you can't really like, because it's not part of that particular assignment, just make a note and say, well, I didn't taste it, or something like that. Okay. All right, so isomalt. Isomalt, pull that up real quick. And I have some really awesome sugar sculptures to show you, or isomalt sculptures to show you. So what isomalt is, it's a sugar substitute. So a lot of pastry chefs like to use this instead of using sugar, because it's going to hold a lot longer. So when you're doing all of these different sugar sculptures, using isomalt will make sure that it has a much longer shelf life. It's not going to, you know, start deteriorating or falling apart or anything like that. It is pretty pricey. It is more expensive than sugar is, but like it's stronger. It's a lot easier to cook with, if you will. The chances of crystallization, they're not there. So those are things that you don't have to worry about with working with isomalt. Here. So I pulled up some ones that I thought were really, really pretty. I loved, purple's my favorite color. So I pulled up this really pretty purple flower. This is made with isomalt, so it works the same way as sugar does. You can do the same things. Cindy, it does taste like it, but consuming it in like mass amounts is not going to be good for you, because just kind of the makeup of it is gonna, it's not the greatest thing to consume. It's very like chemical based, because it's a sugar substitute. It's not real sugar. But it is sweet. It definitely is sweet, like isomalt is. But see, you know, it works the same. You can handle it just the same. And I mean, people make just gorgeous, gorgeous items with isomalt. It's so pretty, right? This is that flower. They took it through and made a whole sculpture out of it. So I wanted to share that with you, and that way you guys, you know, kind of have an awareness of what isomalt is. And there's going to be a lot of people working with that in the sugar world. You know, there's a lot of different things that you can do with sugar. So we were kind of talking about that earlier, like, well, what am I supposed to do with my sugar now? Like, you know, what do I do with it? I've taken it through these stages. I don't want to throw it away. So something that you could do, which I was telling Monique I wanted to bring that up for you guys, is some garnishes, some caramel garnishes. So what you can do, these are those picks that I was talking about, where you just dip it in the caramel and then you let it kind of drip down. And you can like stick a toothpick in it, dip the nut in there, and then kind of just rest that toothpick off like the side of like a cake tin or off the counter or something like that, where that caramel can drip down. And then it creates this really pretty pick. And here's a great picture of it. See how like tall they are? And it adds a lot of drama to a dessert. It adds height, you know, you want people's eye, you want to draw their eye in. So something like that would be gorgeous on a plate. Of course, the sugar cages where yours truly burnt her hand so many years ago. You can put those, you can put things in them. You can use it as a cup. You can top, like how they've done here, you can cover it. Spirals, these are super fun to make. So when you're, there we go. So when you're doing a spiral, what you want to do is take that caramel once you've hit that stage, and then you're going to stick it in your ice bowl, right? And then that way it gets to a working consistency. It's starting to thicken up a little bit, because you're never going to be able to do that with like really liquid. If it's got a lot of viscosity, if it's still really liquidy, it's not going to happen. So you want it to set up a little bit, firm up a little bit. And then I like to use like a honing steel, you know, like the long steels that you're sharpening your blade on. To get really skinny ones, you can use a rolling pin. But what you do is you just take like a fork or a spoon, you dip it in the caramel, and then you just slowly spiral it around your cylinder, whatever it is that you're using. Let it set, spray it a little bit with oil. That helps, if like with pan spray, and that helps it to just like slide right off. But they're so pretty. You can put them as garnishes on top. You can make really large ones, like on a rolling pin, and then you can plate dessert in there, and it almost makes like a boat. So those are really cool to make. Those are really fun as well. So the sugar to make the strands. So you're gonna wanna go for that 320. You're gonna start there, because that's where sugar begins to caramelize. So you can kind of gauge how dark you want your caramel to be. Remember, there's gonna be some carryover cooking, so you can take it off a little bit lighter than what you intend. That way, once you pull it off, it's gonna get just a touch darker. You're gonna hit it in the ice water, and then you'll have a really nice color to work with. Any other questions? I want to go over next week's chocolate with you guys. I don't want to get into the discussion of chocolate, but I do want to make sure that you guys are comfortable and you know what it is that you're wanting to buy for next week, but I don't want to go there yet if you guys still have questions on Sugar Week. No, all right. I think we're good to go. But just stop me if you have questions. So Miss Bethany told me about King Arthur Flour is having a sale right now. They are shipping for free over $59 this week only. So they sell chocolate. They sell they sell the couverture chocolate that we're looking for. So I just wanted to show you. All right, so here we've got some bittersweet chocolate. Guittard is a good brand to use. Calabo is another one. Let's see, we've got Guittard, Calabo, Godiva, Lindt, Ghirardelli. You know, that baker's brand, that's fine as well. Scharfenberger. These are the ones that you're probably going to find in your store. So what we're looking for is the ingredients should be cocoa butter, cocoa solids, sugar, maybe some vanilla for a flavor, and if it's more like a milk, then there's going to be milk solids in there. White chocolate, milk chocolate's going to have milk solids. If you start, and lecithin as an emulsifier. If you start seeing added oils, you want to stay away from it. Couverture chocolate is only cocoa butter, and it has high percentages of cocoa butter. This is to make sure that you get that really beautiful set, shine, and snap, your 3 S's, when you're tempering chocolate. So look for those 3 brands, and then if all else fails, look at the back of the label, read your ingredients. It shouldn't be like this whole long list of ingredients. There shouldn't be anything that you can't pronounce in there. Cocoa solids, cocoa butter, sugar, your lecithin, and then a vanilla or maybe milk solids. And then again, the brands, probably, I think like Walmart, Target, they'll definitely have your Lindt, your Ghirardelli, Baker's. I know my Target has Scharfenberger. Calabo, you can order it online. I believe Whole Foods has Calabo. And then Guittard, you can get that as well at Whole Foods. You can get that on Amazon also. So do we have any questions about what type of chocolate, what brands, what are we looking for the next couple of weeks? Because week 2 and week 3, you're going to be doing chocolate production. So I'd probably say maybe like 2 or 3 pounds of chocolate you're going to want to pick up, at least 2 pounds of chocolate, because you can use your chocolate from week 2. You should be able to use that for week 3. Because week 2 we're just doing production. We're going to temper it. We're going to do some decor with it. And then I'll talk to you guys next week about how to hold it for week 3. You can use dark, milk, white. I will tell you, tempering dark is going to be easier than tempering your milk chocolates and your white chocolates. So if it's something that you're kind of feeling a little uneasy about, I would stick with the darks. I would stick with like a 60 to 70%. Because it is just going to be a little bit easier to temper that. No, you don't have to buy all 3, just one of them. And it's your preference, whichever you prefer. And we'll talk about all the guidelines of how to temper each one of those next week. Why don't we all just temper so we don't have to temper? What do you mean?
So I learned about this Zemper chocolate.
Yeah.
You don't have to temper it. So why don't chefs use that instead of tempering? Like, you know what I mean? It seems like it's so much easier. You don't mess up your chocolate. All you have to do is throw it in over some heat. Like, how come, like, I'm just wondering, like, why chefs don't lean more towards that than having to buy Couverture chocolate?
Yeah, that's a great question. So some of those chocolates that are already going to set, they're already going to, you don't have to do the tempering. There are added fats and added oils. There's added ingredients in there. Then it kind of detracts from that true flavor of chocolate. You know what I mean? So like when you start adding extra ingredients in it to make sure that it's not something that you are going to have to set yourself, that you're going to have to temper yourself, it starts to change the texture. It starts to change the flavor. So, you know, you want to do chocolate justice and you really want to let that be the show and let that be the star. So I think that that's why, you know, we kind of lean towards continuing, you know, the art of and the practice of tempering chocolate versus only using, you know, the glazes or only using like the pre-made shells and stuff where you can just come in and do the fillings. So I think that that's probably why we still kind of maintain that art of tempering chocolate. But that's a great question. You know, in this world, we're very steadily moving toward things that are, you know, easier and things that are a lot more convenient. So you would, you know, we start to see some of that creep into the industry, different conveniences. A lot of those chocolate shops, a lot of the chocolateries, they have tempering machines. So a lot of places, they're not tempering it by hand anymore. They've got a machine, it's keeping their chocolate tempered, and all they're having to do is work with it. That is if they're still doing it by hand. There's a lot of production machines, even on small scale. There's a lot of machines doing it for you. But it's always nice when you find a place that does everything from scratch. Doesn't it like make you feel a little bit better? You're like, oh man, they're making everything from scratch. They're tempering it. They're making their fillings. They're doing it all. It's really cool to come across those types of places.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wendy has a question. Go ahead, Wendy.
Okay, I got this. Is
Yeah.
that what we need?
That's perfect. It's fantastic.
Okay, and this one, it has what the ingredients that you mentioned.
Okay, yep, then you're good to go. As long as it has those ingredients, then you're fine. I couldn't quite see it. Shoot me a text. Text me that picture because I can't see the link all the way. But
Okay.
as long as it's the ingredients that I just mentioned, then you're fine.
Okay.
Okay. Well, let me just review what is due this week. That way, you know, we're not forgetting anything. All right, so we've got your discussion. You want to have your initial post by Saturday. 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. That way it gives all of your peers a chance to respond to you. And then of course you're going to want to do your 2 responses by Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. You have a knowledge check. You also have a conversion check. Remember to remember to get them done this week. Yes, they are still open, but aim for getting everything done each week because there aren't makeups, so we don't want you falling behind. And then of course, this week's assignment is due. Your sugar cookery is going to be due again on Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Do we have any other questions? It's been so much fun. I've been so excited to have you guys again. I know I had you guys, most of you guys, a couple blocks ago. So I'm super excited. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun in this class. Anybody have any last questions before we wrap up for the night? No, and I don't think I missed anything in the chat. Well, if that is all, guys, I will be seeing you next week in our live session. Rewatch the archive. If you have any questions, text me. You're always going to get the fastest response if you shoot me a text. But just make sure you tell me your name and if you're calling me, and if I can't get to the phone, just make sure you leave a voicemail. That way I know who to call back. All right? Thanks for coming out, and I hope that you guys have a great night. Good night. Good night.